Thanks for tuning in to Proline TV. It's time to talk some NASCAR with CJ Radun from rotowire.com. And this is one of those times, CJ, I know we've often talked about maybe doing some live broadcasts at the end of races, and that could be fun. And I'm even thinking about doing it for Talladega next week. That's usually a good time because you always know something crazy will happen at the end of the race, and so it makes a lot of sense to attempt that. I will say that if I would have been doing a live show last week or a few days ago on Sunday, the profanity would have been just probably too much for anybody to handle. This is what happened on Sunday at Darlington to me is what is the absolute worst of NASCAR, the absolute worst of it. You're sitting there for the entire race. You're watching the race. You're watching it unfold. You're watching a dramatic drive by Ryan Blaney. This is what you're waiting for because Darlington's a boring track. And so, hey, we finally have drama at Darlington. Will Ryan Blaney be able to catch Tyler Reddick in time? So all of that drama, Ryan Blaney catches him, passes him. Finally, we were watching this for like an hour. He passes him. Finally, a lap, not even a lap after he passes him. No, as he passes him.
Yes. It's like
we get two idiots. I don't care who. I don't even know who to blame between Kyle Larson and Bubba Wallace because I don't know why they're driving so close to each other to begin with anyway, with 4 laps to go. What's the reason for it? Or even if I'm gonna get it, because I'm not really necessarily blaming Bubba. I saw the video of how Bubba what was Bubba gonna do. So I get that. So my take then is. It's just, not necessarily was what is Bubba going to do, but for me, it's Larson. It's like, what are you doing? It's like, why are you even driving how you're driving? What are you accomplishing here? Why aren't you just cruising? Why do these drivers do this at the end of races anyway? Why do they put themselves in these positions? Now, I can understand it if they're in a pack and every place matters because you get points, and I get that. There's nothing to gain for Kyle Larson in this position. There's not even anything to gain for Bubba. So the fact that they get into this wreck that causes a caution and everything and all the drama that we just witnessed for the past half hour, an hour, just goes away. And now it's because it's Darlington. It all comes down to who gets out first on the pits. As we said last week, that's Darlington. And that because it doesn't matter if you're on the outside. It doesn't matter how good or bad your car is the entire day. If you restart on the outside, you are going to wind up winning the race. And that's exactly what happened. And it's just absolutely a bad look, which NASCAR doesn't give a shit. This is stuff they don't care about. We've been complaining about this stuff for a long time, but this is the stuff that just, this is what sucks about NASCAR.
It was a very disappointing finish, I got to say. Larson was back on track trying to make up positions, but at that point with 4 laps left in the race, he was still, like 70 some laps behind Josh Berry, I think it was at that point.
He didn't even make up. I heard that he made up no ground. He got like 1 position made up. And I think another driver also made up another position, which made him even or something. So he gained nothing. Yeah. With all of that, let's fix the car. Let's get him out there. All this DVP rule change did in this particular instance was change the outcome of a race. And why on earth would they change a rule that could put them in a position to change the outcome of a race? To me, you go back to the way it was before. I don't care what fans complained. I don't care what teams complained. It never dictated the winner of a race. This did.
It goes back to the years before we had the charter system when we used to wonder why there are 43 cars on track when there are some that crash like incessantly and disrupt the race result. They either take out the winner or they take out somebody that was racing for the win because they shouldn't have been out there to begin with. I think that put this in the same situation. I don't know if I'm a fan of the DVP rule or the change. I'm not sure that I have an opinion either way, to be honest with you. I think the fact of the matter is that Larson was so far out Number one, why is he still running? The team should have probably taken him off. That's more money that they have to spend repairing a car that they crashed again when they earned nothing for it. So is that a team call, or is it Larson's fault for crashing in the exact same spot 4 laps into the race and 4 laps to go with the race, off the exact same turn at the exact same spot in the exact same manner? I'm not sure if it's his, if you put the blame on him or if you put the blame on the
Sure.
team. Either way, it resulted in a really crappy finish to the day. Unfortunately, it was bad for Blaney. It was bad for Byron. It was bad for the fans watching. The only person I think that it was good for was Denny Hamlin.
Yeah, and good to Hamlin to basically say afterwards that I mean he knew it. It was the pit. It was the pit crew. They won the race. He didn't have a winning car, and
Another, that point in and of itself maybe is probably my biggest criticism overall of NASCAR, and that these races are too long. Why do we have a 400-mile race if 9 seconds of your pit crew on the last lap, second to last lap, is going to determine the race? Why do we spend 2.5, 3 hours getting to that point? It just doesn't make sense. Like these races can be shorter. We can make them more exciting with tires, and we'll talk about tires for Bristol because we're back to the spring race at Bristol. Last year we had all the tire issues. I think NASCAR's got to work on their competition and the on-track entertainment, and you don't need to then fill 3 hours, 4 hours worth of filler at a boring track with somebody that leads the first 243 laps, only to then, make a bad mistake that loses the race for him, to then get a second shot at it that then gets caught up in traffic and doesn't have a chance to win the race in the end anyway. So it feels like a wasted 3 or 4 hours. Probably feels like we could have put it into an hour, hour and a half, and maybe had a better outcome.
yeah, one or another, because you can't have it. Look, it's the worst track in the series when it comes to that situation. It just is. I mean, that's like the worst possible outcome. It's sort of like all of that is like it's like having a caution at a super speedway. It's like what it is. It's like that's the worst possible outcome when you're at a Darlington race. You do not want to see a late caution with 3 laps to go because it's all up to the pit crew.
Except for the fact that if you get a caution at a super speedway, just because you start first doesn't mean you're automatically going to win the race. Unlike Darlington, where if you start first and you have that high line in an overtime finish, there is no chance of anybody catching you.
No. The only thing, of course, with the caution, what I'm saying is, I guess the caution at a super speedway, of course, being on the final lap with 1 lap to go, and then the race is over, and you can't do anything about it. That's the same thing with the pit crew. There's nothing you can do about it. Oh, but we can. Our pit crew is better than yours. Yep. I mean, nobody came to Darlington the entire weekend to watch that race, to watch the pit crew win the race for them. I'm sorry. I mean, we know the pit crew is important. We understand that, but it shouldn't be that important.
Agreed. And I'm not saying that, pit stops in general, blah, 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 should not determine a race. They absolutely should, because we talk about it all the time. It's a team sport. What I am saying is that it came the entire 3 or 4 hours literally came down to 9 seconds in that entire span. So let's figure out something to be able to make it more competitive and more entertaining throughout the few hours, and so it doesn't just center on 9 seconds.
Yeah, and we got to go back to Darlington again. So not only do we do this once with Darlington,
with an extra 100 miles attached to it.
Oh, let's throw another 100 in there. Why don't we? Yeah, that's great. Okay, and isn't that with the playoffs on the line? Is that the last race before the playoffs? Oh, it is. Okay, terrific. All right, so and that's another thing regarding the pit crews. I mean, once again, we were talking. It's like it's been about a year or so since we've talked about how poorly Ryan Blaney's pit crews have been, and here they go again. It's been an issue this year. We haven't really talked about it much, but it just really got exemplified here in this race, in this situation. It is a bad pit crew. It is amazing that they have won 3 straight championships, haven't they? Yes, Penske, 3 straight championships, and this is their pit crew situation. They still haven't been able to fix put together. Now, again, it always gets better. I will say that for them. It does get better because obviously they wouldn't be able to win races if their pit crews weren't up to par by the end of the season. So I give them that, but I don't understand what all this bad pit crew stuff is at the beginning of the season with Penske all the time. I just don't understand what their philosophy is, or I don't know if they're in training and they just, we'll take the loss now, but we'll be better for it for come playoff. I don't know what the philosophy is, but it is just, once again, Ryan Blaney at the end of the race, he kind of reverted back to I'm going to get pissed off Ryan Blaney, which I didn't like. He did say, yeah, our pit crew's got to be a little bit better, but that's it. He just kind of, we all do, we have to do it. I mean, I don't want to have to go back down that road of like pleading for Ryan Blaney to get a little bit more upset about the fact that he just lost the race because his pit crew sucks. I mean, that's just the bottom line. Now, I give him credit for not throwing anyone under the bus. I get that. But we've been here a lot of times with them. Maybe winning a championship and almost winning a second championship is the reason why he's biting his tongue and he's willing to give these guys a shot because he knows in the long run they'll figure it out. It just can get aggravating though. But then again, that's the next gen drivers we have actually, as these guys just don't lose their temper as much as the other guys did.
Yeah, I remember AJ Foyt at the Indianapolis 500. One of his cars running out of fuel. He walked over and grabbed the laptop that was doing the calculations for the fuel load and smashed it on the ground. Ryan Blaney deserves to take some laptop, and William Byron, quite honestly, because that laptop, whoever made that call to keep him out on track that lost him the lead, that ended up losing him the race. I think drivers deserve to take a laptop and smash it into the concrete.
Yeah, that was interesting because the first time around, everybody pitted early. Blaney stays out, and it was the smart call. Second time around, he comes in, and Blaney's guys are smart enough to go, well, we know what happened last time, so we're going to stay out. Hamlin stayed out too, but Hamlin didn't have the fast car. Blaney did. So that made no sense. It's like, why would you did it the first time. Why wouldn't you do the same thing the second time? It's like you're overthinking it or something.
Yeah, it was baffling to me. Specifically for Byron, just why not look at Christopher Bell? Why not look at the times of Blaney? You could have just looked at Bell. You didn't even have to wait for Blaney to see his times. But if you would have been paying more attention, I think you would have seen what the difference was. And Byron was just left out way too long on old tires, and there was no chance. And maybe they thought that he had such a good car that he'd be able to come back regardless. But once you're racing cars roughly the same speed as you, whereas you haven't been all day, then your tire wear is going to go off really quickly and your car is going to handle differently. And that's exactly the trap that Byron fell into.
And of course, there was also, a lot of talk about what the difference between Byron, again, being out in clean air. And as soon as he, is in a little bit of dirty air, not only is he not anywhere close to as fast as he was, but he's like just an average car now. And that is just amazing how being in just a little bit of dirty air can completely change the outcome of your car and the race. So
absolutely. That's a benefit of these current generation of cars. They work at some tracks, but not at others.
And that's the thing you really have to give it though to Blaney and his crew and their game plan, because the crew chief and the way they set up his car on the long runs are probably as good as any driver. And this is why Ryan Blaney is able to win some of his races. That's the interesting thing. We talk about how Keselowski or even Bowman, of course, Keselowski a lot more, will steal races. They don't lead a lot of laps, but they'll lead those last 30 laps and they'll steal races. But Blaney's, like, his MO is, we're going to get them in the last stage. It doesn't matter how far back we are. As long as there's no caution, we are going to chase those mothers down and we are going to set this car up, do a great job of it. And that's usually how Ryan Blaney wins races. So, and it looks like he was going to do it again. And then it was ripped away from him with the caution. So, that's the way it went for Darlington. Now let's fast forward to Bristol, as you mentioned, CJ and let's talk about a couple of trends first, because you mentioned it before. So last year in this race, I mean, it was a good race. It was a fun race because they decided to put this resin out, and it was the first race after the dirt. So I don't know if that had. I'm assuming it had something to do with it, and it actually led to a host of crazy lead changes, and tires were up and down, and this is exactly what we want in racing. And it was a fun race. And Denny Hamlin took over late, and then the later the race was, it was a little bit more normal. You know, they were able to, I guess the resin had kind of dissipated, and it went back to normal. And then Hamlin won, and it was a nice race. Then they came back in September, and there's no resin, and Kyle Larson leads almost every lap and wins the race and completely dominates the race. So I don't know what we're going to get here. Now, it's not a night race, so maybe there's a little there to change it, but I'm almost a little bit concerned with what we might get because, again, as we've been talking about, Bristol has just not been the same Bristol with the next gen.
I would be very concerned about what we're going to get, and I can promise you that we won't get what we saw in the spring. Neither NASCAR nor Goodyear, from all of my looking, was able to really say why the tire wear was as extreme as it is. I think the only difference I saw in terms of that analysis was that for whatever reason in March, the didn't take over. So if you're sliding around more, you don't have as much grip. Certainly, you're going to have more tire wear. Whereas when you get to the fall race, the rubber went into the track, and that created, the grip that the teams needed and reduced overall tire wear. But it was really interesting as I was looking through that, as you said, everything was very exciting. There was big fall off on the tires in the spring, and then the exact opposite happened in the fall, and there was virtually no tire fall off, and there were no tire problems, and that's why you ended up with a dominant race by Kyle Larson out there, who led almost every lap from the second position from the front row. So I think we're going to see something more like the fall. The temperature, could potentially, I'm not sure what the weather forecast is supposed to be this week. This race is a little bit later than it used to be, I guess, several years ago. It used to be more in the March timeframe, if I'm not mistaken. So there were times where we'd have snow.
Yes.
Like that. I'm not necessarily sure that that's going to happen again, but
62.
Yeah, perhaps something like that might give us a little bit more excitement. But otherwise, I'm expecting a pretty boring race, to be honest with you.
It's actually in the morning when they wake up, it's going to be in the 30s.
Ah, okay.
But race time will probably be in the 60s, right around there. It could be, I'm looking at my temperature, but, again, I'm only a couple hours away from Bristol. Yeah. Because if something happens and we see another dominating performance like Larson, then they are going to have to make changes fast, and they got to figure it out, because that's not what we want to see from Bristol. Okay. So as far as other trends to keep an eye on, this is the second short track of the year. So at least we have some data to go on, because we had Martinsville. So we'll look at that. And we also have two drivers who have won 4 of the last 5 races at Bristol. Larson and Hamlin. They've won 2 each. Buescher is the only one in that group that didn't. And interesting, Buescher's also an outlier. In the 7 of the last 8 winners, starting in the top 5 with 2 pole sitters, the one that did not is Buescher. He started 20th. So Buescher's standing out there in both of those interesting little trends. There are no manufacturer trends at Bristol. So Toyota, Chevy, Ford, doesn't seem to matter. Since 2005, which is 37 races, only one winner has come from outside the top 20. Outside the top 20. And that was Kevin Harvick, 24th in 2016. So that's the line that we'll draw on in the Saturday qualifying update. By the way, the high on Saturday is going to be 50, so it'll be a lot cooler for the Xfinity race. But yeah, we'll have a line of top 20. And the last 24 winners, 18 of them started in the top 10. That's 75%. And because of what happened in September, it is sure looking like you had better start up front. You had better have a fast car. And if you have a fast car, you're probably going to have a great shot of winning this race. So that's something that we're going to be keeping an eye on. And what I'm also going to keep an eye on, besides Martinsville, so we'll take a look at that as we go through the numbers, is that if we're going to pick a driver, now you might say, yeah, we got Larson and Hamlin and, Chevy and Toyota and all that, and two different teams. But the one team that really sticks out right now between Bristol and even Martinsville, as well as this season, it's Joe Gibbs Racing. So now Hamlin is trying to do what Bell did. He's trying to win 3 straight. Maybe he will. So if you want to look at Denny Hamlin this week, go ahead. You're not getting good odds, but that's something you can go after. I'm not going to hold that against you after what we've seen this season. But the other 2 drivers might be the more interesting ones because they're both capable, and that's Gibbs and Briscoe. So that's what we're going to get to as well. They got much better odds. But Joe Gibbs, and the reason I say that is we're going to get into this, is they had the top 3 cars at Martinsville. All right. And Toyota had the top 3. Joe Gibbs had the top 2. So Toyota, Joe Gibbs, Martinsville. We had the history of Hamlin winning, of course, a couple times here lately at Bristol. Throw in the fact that Joe Gibbs Racing is on complete fire. It could come from one of those drivers once again as we go through the field. So let's go ahead and do that. Let me pop up the odds. Not a surprise of who the top 2 are going to be.
Hamlin and Larson.
As well they should. So let's take a look at who do you think's after that? Because they both deserve it. So who would you go with next?
Probably for Bell. It's between Byron and Bell.
Byron, really? Okay.
No, Blaney and Bell. All right.
Yeah. Once again, Blaney, like we said last week, and look, he almost won last week. And as I said on Saturday show, because we didn't talk about last week, the comparisons with Darlington and Homestead, and don't forget, Ryan Blaney almost won that race at Homestead. He had a really fast car. So he wound up almost winning again at Darlington, so it made sense. Now here, I'm not seeing it as much, but there are a couple of reasons we'll get into why Blaney is an interesting pick. But should he be up with these drivers again? I don't think so. But I mean, I'd like to take Blaney, but his odds aren't very different from the other drivers who have had dominating performances here. So let's start with the top 2 then, with Larson and Hamlin. And Larson's had 2 wins here, and Hamlin has had 4. Matter of fact, Hamlin has won a race in the last couple of years, as we mentioned. So has Larson. So again, you got the 2 drivers that have won 4 out of 5 races at Bristol. Larson's got 10 of 11 top 10s, 7 top 5s, 3 runner-ups, as well as 2 wins during that stretch. He's led 19 or more laps in his last 6 at Bristol. And of course, is coming off the dominating 462 lap performance in September. Hamlin has 2 wins and a 4th in his last 3 appearances, and he dominated at Martinsville, leading 274 laps. So to me, the only way that I'm going to differentiate these 2 drivers is just I'm going with the Joe Gibbs driver right now. That's it. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say, hey, if Denny Hamlin wins a 3rd straight, I just saw Christopher Bell do it. I'm not going to get caught this time. So, yeah, that's the only. Otherwise, I mean, if anybody wants to take Kyle Larson, I'm okay with it.
For me, these 2 are the flip of a coin. They're both exceptionally good and exceptionally good recently at this track. So there's very little to differentiate between them. For me, I think the deciding factor is just the fact that Larson is up and down. Obviously, he was down last week, so that means this week he's probably going to be up. That Hamlin is, and Joe Gibbs Racing has just been on a tear. So it's hard to bet against them at this point. And I am throwing out my back-to-back winner thing that I've been on now for the past year, a little bit over a year now, because of Hamlin's ability now here to get it done twice. And then obviously we even saw it with Byron winning back-to-back Daytona 500. So this year has changed those statistics for me. So take away the fact that Hamlin won last week. He was very dominant on the short tracks last season, especially early in the year as well. So Hamlin gets the edge for me. But again, I would also take Larson.
Okay. And now Blaney and Bell. So let's keep in mind, neither driver has won a race at Bristol. In the last 4, Bell has 4 top 10s and 3 top 5s, and he's led 359 laps. He also finished second at Martinsville. And again, of course, he's a Joe Gibbs Racing driver who won and finished second in 4 Xfinity Series races at Bristol. So this is a good track for Bell. Again, he's never won, but can he win 4 times already this season? That's the thing that's going to eliminate me from taking Bell. That's all. Can he do it? Of course he can. Maybe he will, but I still think it's a hard sell for me when you have other drivers that can do it, that you can choose from. Blaney, what I can say about Blaney is, even though he's got a couple of top 5s, that's it. He has led over 500 laps, so he's got there's some history there, including in the Xfinity Series, like Bell. Matter of fact, very, very similar to Bell. He has a runner-up and a win in the Xfinity Series at Bristol. Now, he was 11th in Martinsville. That's not great, but don't forget, he started from 32nd position in that race and actually fared pretty well. But he's had some issues closing races, and it's very hard to come back from 32nd, and we saw why in that race. Now, if you look at Martinsville, though, in general, I believe, let's see, he was, and again, I'm just basing this because of short tracks, he was 1st and 5th. So now he's coming into Bristol, where he was 6th and 16th last year. But he was on the pole in this race last year and had a pretty good car early. Then it just tailed off. Didn't really have much. But he ended up with a 6th place finish in September. And what's interesting is, if you look over his last 4 races at Bristol, he's gotten better each time. So the way he's going, I think Blaney might actually win this race the way things are going, because he's just getting better. He's doing even better at tracks that he doesn't have maybe a tremendous history at, but he's just fast right now. And he's now away from even the bad luck he had a few weeks ago. And that's why I didn't touch him in any of those races. So I would touch him this week. The problem is he's 6-1. That's the thing that's biting me.
Yeah, I think the odds are too low for Blaney at this track, considering he's kind of been up and down. When he's qualified well earlier in his career and with the older car, more often than not, he would finish the race lower. So it's only been relatively recently, I guess, that he's started getting some pretty consistent top finishes here. And like you said, he's been improving since 2022. And granted, we had the dirt track as well, so that took away a number of his chances. But if you look at Bell's statistics here, much more consistently inside the top 10. There's only 2 races out of his 7 at Bristol that he's not finished inside the top 10. Last year, he finished 10th and 5th. For me, I think if Blaney qualifies well, I would definitely go for him for all the reasons that you said, because he's been racing extremely well. And I think at this track, you need to start up front, and that's going to be important on Sunday. I think if you're choosing today, Bell's odds are better and the chances are better there. So I'd probably go with Bell today. I might wait to see where Ryan Blaney qualifies. His odds aren't going to get lower, I wouldn't think, because they're already pretty low for his results at this track.
Yeah, look, I try to make it real here, because as a Blaney fan, and anytime you follow a team religiously, or a driver or an athlete, you're going to have an edge over most other people. That's why anytime I try to make it real and say, hey, I just don't think this is the right time to take Ryan Blaney. And usually I'm right about that, especially when he's struggling. He's one of those drivers. You just don't take him when he's struggling. And now he is starting to trend in the right direction, as he's starting to trend in the right direction at Bristol. I think he's a solid play. The problem, and then the question I have though is deciding to take him now because I know if he does qualify well, you're going to lose a couple of points, and now you're getting to a point where I just can't take Ryan Blaney at 4-1. I mean, now we're getting a little ridiculous.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, 6-1 today is probably it's definitely the better deal. But if he comes out and qualifies 15th, 17th, 18th, then probably going to be a little bit disappointed. I'd almost be willing to give up the 1 or 2 points if he's able to qualify on the front row. I'd have much more confidence then. But yeah, you a little bit of money there.
All right. Let's now move on to the next group. And let's see. Here we go. All right. Now, as far as the 2 Hendrick drivers here, the thing with Elliott is similar to Blaney. The odds are low at 8-1, and he's never won at Bristol. Now, he does have 5 top 5s, but he's led less laps than Blaney, 444. But in his last 4, all top 10s, a couple of runner-ups. But keep in mind, out of those 4, he's only led 5 combined laps. And he is coming off a 4th at Martinsville. That's nice. He led 42 laps there. Now he has been getting no respect lately, where the odds have been 18 the last few weeks and such, and yet his results have been okay. I don't know. I just don't see a difference here this week. I don't understand why he's 8-1. I don't see it. He's still not leading laps, and I just unless he steals this race, which is possible, I don't see it at 8-1. And to tell you the truth, even with Byron. Let's keep this in mind. William Byron, who's 11-1, has never led a lap at Bristol in the Cup Series. He's got 2 top 5s. He was 22nd at Martinsville. He did not have a top 15 last year. I mean, I'm obviously not taking either one of these drivers. And to tell you the truth, the 2 drivers I am taking are the ones on the bottom. As I said before, I'm taking Briscoe and Gibbs. I'm getting 18 and 20. I was getting 25-1 until the Gibbs odds. Actually, I was able to get 25-1 on my sports book, but here it's 20. So maybe if you could still get 25-1 on Gibbs, take it. But look at Gibbs. Gibbs had a really good car here last year in this race. He almost won the race. Actually, he was leading with about 100 laps to go. He led 137 laps, and then in 2023 he led 102 laps and finished 5th. And he actually has performed pretty well in both of his Xfinity Series races, including a pole. And again, he's Joe Gibbs Racing. He's trending in the right direction, coming off a 9th place finish. So everything is looking good there. JGR, with everything we've talked about, absolutely taking Gibbs and also taking Briscoe, because keep in mind, last year, Martin Truex Jr. almost won both races at Bristol, even though he had never won at Bristol before. So he actually had pretty good Bristol car last year, and he actually led Hamlin late in the race, but then Hamlin repassed him for the late lead and win. And then he wound up doing remember all those mistakes Truex was making at the end of the last season? That was the mistake that he made again at Bristol that really helped screwed him up, when he sped on pit road when he was in 2nd place late in the race. So Briscoe's going to go into that car, and he doesn't have a great history himself, but it's been okay. Last year, 8th and 13th, it's just okay. But in the Xfinity Series, in 4 races, I believe it's 4 races, 4 top 5s, 2 runner-ups and a win. And no, I think it was 5, maybe 5 or 6 races. But in his last 4 Xfinity Series races, he finished 1st, 2nd, and 4th. So yeah, I really like Briscoe and Gibbs a lot as a little mini long shots here, and would much rather take them with double the odds than Elliott and Byron.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Chase Elliott, extremely consistent at Bristol, but like you said, he hasn't been leading laps at this track or this season so far. So I think he's still a little bit behind being able to win a race unless he steals it, like you said, but finished 2nd, 7th, 8th, and 2nd in the last 4 races at Bristol. So I think you got to put Elliott, or find a way to get Elliott into your fantasy rosters if you can. William Byron, Yeah, he's done nothing at Bristol. And the only reason that I said it was either him or Bell up at the front was just because of how well he ran last week and just dominated the race. So I assume that people, when they're putting money this early, would be thinking about that. And thankfully, some of my confidence has been redeemed with people putting him rightfully where he belongs. I would think actually, though, he should be lower 35th and 17th in his last two races.
Yeah.
He hasn't done anything. Joey Logano, not even worth talking about, because when we switched over to the new car, he used to be good here. But when we switched over to the new car, his best finish since then has been 22nd at this track. So nothing to look at with him, plus the fact that his luck this year so far has been absolutely awful. Chase Briscoe. So that brings us to Chase Briscoe and Ty Gibbs, which are the two best choices on this page. I completely agree, except I'm going to go with Gibbs over Briscoe. And the reason why is I think there's probably been 4 or 5 times already now where I have felt that Truex had a really good car, and the car that Briscoe is now driving, Truex did well at the track. And so therefore I would give out every single time he's let me down.
Okay.
This is one of those times. So for that reason only, I am saying Gibbs. I do like Gibbs at this track as well, though, just because he's had over 100 laps, led 2 out of 4 tries here.
Yep.
Finishes. I think if he qualifies inside the top 10, he's probably got a chance at the win.
100%. I agree with you on Gibbs as well over Briscoe. They're both really good odds. By the way, Logano on my sportsbook was 30-1 where he belongs. I have no idea why he's down to 18-1 here. But I don't even think I would take him at 30-1. So, okay, let's now go to the next group. And here, everybody's kind of bunched up. Okay, so the two that I would look at here are Kyle and Chris Buescher. And again, Keselowski, you know how I feel. He had a pretty good run last week and then tailed off late. Martinsville was 26th at Martinsville. So I don't see anything that really means that he's going to do well here. But his teammate Buescher, again, you're getting 25-1. And he, of course, as I mentioned, was the outlier in the trends. So he's got a win here. And he did lead 169 laps, so he didn't steal the win or anything like that. And he's got 4 top 10s in his last 6 at Bristol with 2 top 5s and a win. Now, he didn't have a good result at Martinsville, but I'm willing to forgive that because I care more about this track. And so he's got a good resume here at 25-1. As far as Kyle, now, look, I think at some point when you're this good a driver at a short tracks and at Bristol, and you're with a team now for a few years, you have got to be able to figure it out. I mean, you have to. And I know they didn't have a good result at Martinsville. Okay, I get that. But I like the fact that they're trending in the right direction. So they're kind of moving back ahead. They got off to a good start. Then they have all sorts of trouble again. Now they're trending back in the right direction. And he's coming to a track that he's done nothing at lately. With RCR, 25th, and 20th. Average 23.3. Okay, matter of fact, the last 5, if we want to go back, he's averaged 25, okay, leading 5 laps. So why would I even think of this? But again, the only reason is because he's just it's not him, it's the car. So in case they figure it out, it's 20-1. I don't think it's the worst idea in the world. That's all. I'd rather take Gibbs and Briscoe, but I think it's worth just keeping an eye on Kyle because you never know when they're going to flip the switch on one of these situations. It's early enough in the year where they could still have maybe figured something out differently this year on the short track. So I'm willing to give him. But look, if it comes out 20th again, 2017th at Martinsville, then forget it as far as I'm concerned for a while. But I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt just because it is Kyle Busch. But yeah, and as far as the other drivers, if you think about it, even as far as Chastain and the matter of fact, the whole team hasn't really. I mean, Chastain's been okay. I think he's 12th in points, but Suarez has done nothing. It's just the team is just not going well right now.
I agree. Chastain's kind of been nowhere, lost in no man's land, and his best finish at Bristol was a sixth back in the fall of 2022. The fall of last year, he finished 10th. So, if things go his way, top 10 might be in the cards, but more realistically, probably more around 15, 20th, I would think. On this page, well, I'll hit Keselowski real quick. The guy can't buy a break in 25. He had a decent car, was doing okay until the wheel nut came off inexplicably last week, and that's just emblematic of his entire season so far. So until things start turning around in the luck department for Keselowski, I would avoid him even at a place like Bristol, where he's been really good. The two that stand out for me without a doubt are Chris Buescher and Bubba Wallace. Chris Buescher, hands down, above Wallace. Wallace got his best result at Bristol in the fall race of last year. He got a top 10 finish, whereas Buescher, he's got a win. He's been much more consistent at this track. I'm sorry, a third place for Bubba Wallace last fall. But Chris Buescher had the win back in the fall of 2022. Since then, he's finished 4th and 7th. Last fall, he finished 14th. So I think it'll take a lot of things to go right for him, unlike his team owner. But so far, Priest and Buescher, the two guys that have been carrying the water in RFK racing. So I think that Buescher at a track like this is a good play at those odds. Everyone else, maybe consider Wallace, but everyone else I'd say I'd pass on, even Kyle Busch at this point.
Yeah, keep in mind, Wallace also is 3rd at Martinsville. The problem with Bubba is, and I'm starting to get to that point, and look, I never had this judgment on him before. I know other fans have, but I'm getting to the point with him now that I just wonder whether or not it's him. I mean, does he have a really good car and he's the problem?
Well,
I don't know.
I completely agree with that. I can't remember if it was last week or maybe the week before or several weeks before that, but it was there. He's been close this year. He's got a better chance this year, and he hasn't been taking the chances. And every time after you see it, and this goes back to past seasons as well, it's well, what was me? I made a bad decision and I've got to learn from it. That tells me it's him. There's no other way to put it. He's been in position to win races, and yes, he has won races, but he's also, I think, lost more races because of his own decisions on track, and he's got to figure that out. And I think that it's more mental than anything else. He's certainly got the ability. He's got the equipment. I mean, look at teammate Tyler Reddick. So I'm with you. I think he's got to figure out what's going on in between his ears and get that sorted out and bring the confidence back. And once he does, perhaps we'll see a different type of Bubba Wallace.
Yeah, and at 25-1, it is not a bad idea. It's sort of like what I was saying with Kyle. You don't know whether or not Bubba just gets it, and boom, there he is. He's got the car. So, and he just finished 3rd last year and 3rd at Martinsville. It's all set up for him at 25-1. If he was, I mean, honestly, I would be okay if Byron was 25-1 and Wallace was 11-1.
Agreed.
So you're getting a good number on Wallace.
Yeah, I agree.
And again, Trackhouse is struggling. And we know we got the Van Gisbergen fans who are not happy. And I don't blame them. I'm not saying it's his fault because their whole team is kind of struggling right now. Front row is struggling. Legacy continues to struggle. Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised at front row. Just they're regressing right now so far this season. They were doing something last year, and now all of a sudden this year they're doing nothing. So I don't know what's going on there, but we'll try to get more into the season on a whole. Maybe next week, because next week is Talladega, and I mean, come on, how much we could preview that race right now. We have so much data on super speedways in Talladega, so maybe we'll spend a little bit of time next week talking about the season as a whole at this point. Okay, now let's move on to the next group. And let's see, before we get to the 100-1 shots. Okay. Out of this group, Bowman and Priest are definitely plays, because you look at Priest, and you mentioned him already with Buescher and Keselowski. So he was 250-1 in this race last year. He finished 7th last year, and the other race was 14th. And that was nothing compared to the equipment he has now. He was 7th at Martinsville. And by the way, he's got an Xfinity Series win here. Ryan Preece does not have like 100 wins in Xfinity Series, so that's important to note. And he also, in 8 career races, his average is 14.3. That's pretty good. And now he has a much better car, and you're getting him at 35-1 off with the start they're off to. And then Bowman, I mean, seriously, you look at it. Now, look, the one thing I would be concerned with is there's a little bit of issue going on now. I don't know what's going on the last couple of weeks, but just hasn't been, very good for Bowman. He's got it's kind of happened ever since the loss to Larson. It's kind of snowballed, and he's got to get out of that, because if he has another bad race this week, that could snowball. Because if you look at it, last year on short tracks, he had 5 top 10s. That includes Iowa. Okay. This year, career-wise at Bristol, he has 3 top 5s in 15 races. That's nothing great. His average is 18.9. Nothing great. But in his last 5 races, and I think they're all next gen, I don't know, most of it might be, 3 top 10s, 2 top 5s, led all 37 of his laps that he's ever led there. Last year, he was 9th from the pole, leading 34 laps, and 4th from the 29th spot, leading 3 laps, for an average of 12.6 in those last 5. So this is clearly a driver that is getting much better at Bristol, and you're getting 35-1. Berry is also not a completely bad idea. He's been okay here. He actually led a bunch of laps at Martinsville, but I still find it hard to believe that Josh Berry is going to win a second race already this year. So, yeah, between these 4, I think Bowman and Preece are good long shots.
Completely agree. Preece is obviously the better one. I think this is a chance for him to really show what he can do. He's already been showing what he can do, given the equipment that he's been in this year. Been really impressed with him. It's like he's finally living up to the expectations that he came back to the series with. So very excited to see Preece this weekend. I would definitely make a play on him at this number for sure, because I think he's gonna be in there. Alex Bowman is somebody that you're getting a discount because of the fact that things have started to kind of trail off there. But last year, 4th and 9th, one of those was on pole, and he led 34 laps. Maybe this place that he can bring it back. So I don't think that everybody else avoid. I don't think Barry's going to get a second win. He might do okay. Maybe a top 10 there. Tyler Reddick only really has 1 finish to speak of at Bristol throughout his career. So certainly Ryan Preece is the top one on this page. Alex Bowman probably close second.
Okay, now let's get to the big long shots. And out of all these big long shots, the ones that would stick out for me if I was thinking of them, and most of them I'm not. I mean, this is just not the type of race right now with the next gen Bristol. I would expect one of these long shots, but I would probably consider Cindric, McDowell, Gregson, and Custer. And I would do that because of the fact that Cindric, he had pretty decent history in the Xfinity Series, but I only look at it as him being, let's get sure his numbers right. Yeah, he's 100-1. I mean, that's just ridiculous. I mean, it's like you're just begging me to put a buck on him because he's been showing you that he's better than he's been. So I don't think he's going to win, but maybe he's a good value, top 10, fantasy, that kind of thing, because that's a big number for Austin Cindric. He's clearly been better this year. McDowell, meanwhile, in his 26 race career at Bristol, he's averaging 26.6. In his last 7, he's got a 12.4 average, including 6th in the 2023 race, and he was 12th at Martinsville. Another good fantasy option. And Gregson has 2 Xfinity Series wins here, and also had a 12th place finish last year in one of his 2 Cup finishes. So, yeah, again, if you're looking for some fantasy type options, I don't get any of these guys probably a win. Custer, I bring him up because in the Xfinity Series, he's got 3 poles, 4 top 5s, and a win in 8 attempts, including his last 2 races in the Xfinity Series, which were the last 2 years, where he finished 2024, he finished second and first. In 2023, he had a pole. Actually, excuse me. Let me put it this way because it was one race each. 2023, he was on the pole, finished fourth, led 109 laps. 2024, he was second place, started second, and won the race, leading 104 laps. So I think if maybe you're going to look for someone to steal a race from one of these long shots, I would look maybe at McDowell, Gregson, or Custer. But I don't know if you have any long shots that you think might be good fantasy wise.
I like Gregson and Cindric. They finished 12th and 13th in the fall race here last season. Both of them have been pretty good at this track. Cindric seemed to get things right last week, so maybe he's got a little momentum back. I agree with you in general. I don't think anybody back here necessarily is going to be in contention to win, but one person that I've got my eye on because he's been very quietly putting together a very good season thus far is Zane Smith. He was 12th last week at Darlington. He's got a top 10. He finished 9th at Phoenix already this year, and he hasn't finished lower than 16th in his last 3 races coming into this weekend. And by the way, last fall at Bristol, he started 33rd, but ended up finishing 16th. So I think Zane Smith might be someone to look at from a fantasy perspective. And I think he's somebody to look at as the season goes on, just to see if he can continue that kind of momentum as we go forward.
Where does his previous history come from?
He was a truck racer, so he was champion in that series, pretty much skipped over Xfinity, came to Cup, and actually this year has been pretty impressive so far, I would say.
Okay, Zane Smith. Let's take a look at picks now, and you go first.
I do go first, so I know who you're going to go, and I will leave him for you. I'll go ahead and take Bell as my top choice.
You know, I didn't even know who I'm going to pick. You know who I'm going to pick? Who am I picking?
Oh, well, actually, no, maybe you're not. Yeah, because the odds are too low. I just assumed.
No, I mean, it's possible.
Blaney. That was.
It actually might be. Yeah, I was actually debating between Hamlin and Blaney. Yeah, but again, just for the because this is our first. Well, you're right. The odds are definitely the thing that is just I'm not really happy with, but he is on a nice trend for me, and I'll go ahead and take him at 6-1. And I do know he's going to win at Bristol eventually. I think this is a track that he's had good history at even early on in his career. He just was too impatient, like a lot of drivers are at Bristol. You got to learn how to win here at Bristol. It's not easy, and I believe he knows how to do that now. So, okay, so I'll take Blaney. I think Hamlin, those odds are just a little too low for me to grab him at 4-1 because I could probably get him at 4-1 on Sunday. So why not just wait and see if something happens to qualifying? Because look what happened last week at Kyle Larson. Nobody expected Kyle Larson's practice speeds and qualifying speeds to be outside the top 18. And then look what happened in the race. So anything's possible. Okay. Who do you got next?
I will go with Gibbs as my second choice.
Yep. And I will then go with Briscoe. So we'll take those Joe Gibbs racing drivers second.
And then lastly, how about Ryan Preece?
Okay. I guess I'll go with Bowman. The other ones to consider here that I had left on that board were actually Busher and Wallace. Who did you have left?
Busher was the one I was debating upon. Ended up going with Preece.
Okay. All right. So there you go. That is going to wrap it up for our show. Next week, it's Talladega. So we go from short track to a super speedway. And then do we have our week off after that? I know it's coming up. Before Texas, I think.
Yeah, it is. Well, is it?
Oh, wait. Our week off's next week.
Yeah, week off is next week. Yep.
That's right. It's Easter next week.
Hard to believe it's that soon. I was still thinking it was 2 weeks away, but you're right. Yeah.
Wow.
A week off and then Talladega, Texas, Kansas before the All-Star race.
Okay, so we'll be off next week, but we are going to be on next week for F1.
We got the Bahrain Grand Prix this weekend, and then the following week we've got Saudi Arabia, so we will be on for Formula One.
There you go. So, matter of fact, we're going to go ahead and record our F1 show right now. So, if you're an F1 fan as well, don't forget to check that out. Obviously, no racing next week. I do want to throw in before we end, because we haven't done this for a few weeks, and that is just quickly just going over the comments, because we haven't had a whole lot lately, but I figured why not? Let's just check them out. And those comments, matter of fact, Lana, one of our more longtime dedicated viewers, this was last week when she welcomed CJ back, hoping that he had a good trip, and said that I picked Denny Hamlin that weekend because of our show, and she was the only one out of the 28 in the group to do that. So very, very happy that she was able to benefit from our information and get Denny Hamlin. And this was, of course, a few weeks ago, not last week. She also, unfortunately, said last week, against my better judgment, hesitated because of starting position. I picked Larson. Yeah, so matter of fact, it did not work out for her.
No.
No. Imagine if you pick a driver and you're going through everything all week and then you're out there for 4 laps and you just done.
Brutal.
Yeah, we've been down that road before. So.
At least you got Hamlin. That was an excellent choice. So congratulations.
Yes. And she said next weekend, which is this weekend coming, I'm going to Bristol and it's my first NASCAR race.
Awesome.
That's cool. A perfect first NASCAR race.
We'll be looking for you on TV.
Yeah. You might be able to find her. I mean, it's not totally packed at Bristol anymore.
Not anymore.
No. Chad Rivera talked about a pick, so I won't throw in that because it wasn't a winning pick. But what I will say is he said, thanks for all the work you do each week. And we appreciate that, Chad, because, again, that's why we do it. And Ken Gunter, 6903, let you know you've done a great job on your breakdown of the drivers. And in any way, great job. I'll be back next week. LGR Boys. What's LGR Boys?
Let's go racing, boys.
Boogity,
boogity, boogity.
When you bring that up, it's really sad in a way, because it just reminds you of when it how good it used to be.
Yep.
So, and how bad it is now. It's unfortunate. It's like everything was so much better then. I don't want to sound like an old fogey, but we all know it was. I mean, come on. I mean, you had the crazy drivers and everything was intense, and you had the funny announcers and they were all, charismatic. Now, we have the boring buttoned up announcers, and the drivers basically the same way. It's just a different era. But it is what it is. All right, we're out of here. We'll see you talking NASCAR in a couple of weeks with Talladega, and we'll see you also with our F1 coverage in a little bit, as well as for next week. And then don't forget, also this week I will have my Saturday qualifying report for Bristol, and then that's when we'll probably that show, or maybe even a day before, right around that time, we're going to be posting CJ's DFS report from rotowire.com. Anything you want to throw in there regarding a report from RotoWire, CJ?
We'll have the weekend preview for Bristol up sometime on Friday, and then we'll have a recap of Bristol sometime on Monday. You can check those both out at rotowire.com, but ahead of Sunday's race, you can check the comments area for the link to the Bristol preview on rotowire.com.
Excellent. For CJ Verdun, I'm Greg DePalma. We'll see you talking NASCAR here in a couple of weeks for Talladega, and enjoy the race on Sunday. Boogity, boogity.